For the very first session, let's start with the privilege presentation. We have two speakers here. The first speaker is Mr. Vincent Boon from APAC Opengear. His talk today is about quick wins in the NetOps journey. Please welcome Mr. Vincent Boon to the stage. Please give him a loud applause.
Great. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for ETIX again this year to invite us as your sponsors for the ETIX and Thailand event. Okay, I'm going to do a very short and very high-level presentation on the automation that we have right now in the market. All right. So before we talk into automation, I would like to touch a little bit on remote access. All right. So in the very old days, where I just graduated from school, how am I going to do a remote access? Is basically using an analog phone line, connect to the modem. The modem will connect to a device. When I want to actually connect to the device, I just dial in and then I got the console. Right. Things has been evolved over the past 30 years. And now we are actually moving away from the plain old telephone line because a lot of the countries has actually decommed the analog phone lines. So now we're actually moving from analog phone lines into the mobile world, right? And then nowadays, when we want to do a remote access, we want to do network resilience, okay, we will rely more on whatever infrastructure that the country has at the same time on the mobile network, right? I think over the last 10 years, when we heard about DevOps, development ops, okay, in the software world, a lot of the network engineers was thinking how we can actually move the same technology in the development or the software arena into the network. That's how it comes about this term called NetOps, right? And then nowadays, when we talk about NetOps 2.0, we are actually going more into automation, right? Meaning that engineers like us, probably 2-3 decades ago, whatever we have done in the past is more or less not applicable to the current network arena. All right, so I'm going to go through a little bit on what we're actually looking forward in terms of network automation. Right, so NetOps, as what I mentioned, now we're actually looking into NetOps 2.0, but let's cover a little bit on the history on the NetOps 1. Basically, NetOps 1 is a very passive environment. We'll just wait when we want to go into a device to check the condition. It's just basically a click ops kind of way of working, right? And then we'll always mainly focus on the uptime and reactive to interactions. Okay, whenever a problem happens, then we actually go in and take a look, right? And then in terms of a business perspective, it always does not able to meet the business needs, okay, of an organization. But when we come into NetOps 2.0, we're actually we're actually doing it as a new approach. Okay, we're actually leverage on continuous integration and continuous delivery. Okay, and then now we're actually able to be more responsive and supportive of the business goal that we have. So with that in mind, we can actually move our focus into more risk management rather than avoid risk from coming up, right? Because with all the tools that's developed in the market by developers, okay, we are actually able to monitor connectivity, the health of the network, give us a response when they found something that is out of the blue. Okay, then we will actually act on it, okay, rather than waiting for the whole network to go down. So what is the disadvantage or what is not that perfect, okay, in the plain old network engineering where engineers sit in front of the device, do the configuration, do the troubleshooting? Okay. One is your configuration is always done by manual. Okay, you key in the command, you cut and paste, you throw it into a terminal, and then you push it up into the device. Okay, I've been doing that since when I come into as a network engineer itself. Okay, vendor specific. Okay, there are so many vendors nowadays in the market, and each of the vendors has his own kind of firmware, his own kind of command line, right? And then if your organization happens to cover maybe 2 or 3 of the different products, you have a lot of commands to remember, all right? And configuration is very inconsistent, all right? Sometimes you receive information say that, okay, I need to do this and this. I want this packet to route to another network, okay? But it's only on special cases, okay? So that configuration does not really hold permanently in the device, all right? And then because of this, your network configuration tends to change every now and then, right? Especially when I work with the telcos, with big enterprises globally, we tend to have this kind of request every now and then. And configuration tends to forget because everything is on paper or on the file on your laptop. Okay? If you leave the organization, the data will actually flow to somewhere else. Okay? Somebody, if your IT network were to reformat your laptop, okay, before passing on to the new guy, whatever that you have done is all lost. Okay? There's no process, okay, to really keep that configuration updated, documented, version it, all right? And then if anything goes wrong, I can't find the password, how do I do? 2 ways. Either you factory default the whole device, and hopefully you can find some configuration somewhere to re-put into the unit. If not, you use the brute force method to go and open up the password. Okay. And then a lot of them is human-oriented interface, right? What we're going to achieve is something like this, meaning your engineers that is on the site, okay, on the left-hand side of the network, regardless which devices are they working on, they can be from the network team, they can from the security team, they can from the server team. We want them to work together, okay, instead of individual silos, okay. Develop configuration that is required by the organization, test it out, okay, in a sandbox environment, and then once all the errors has been resolved, move it into a development phase, right? And this documentation will be constantly updated. If any changes is required, you just go back to the circle again. That means if there's a change, you just go back to your development phase. You use your existing configuration, make the necessary changes, go into a sandbox, everything is fine, push it down to production. Okay. And we also want them to communicate with one another very frequently, because if the network team say that I need to configure a route, okay, and then they configure it, next day, the security come and knock on their door, say that, why are you allowing this route to go through, whereby you did not go through the security team for security audit. Okay? We want to minimize this type of miscommunication. That is why when we go into automation, this is what we wanted to achieve. Every team, every members within the individual silos will work together as a team by itself. And then from there, instead of one engineer doing one device at a time, you will be able to actually do, or you're able to push down numerous devices at one go. This will basically shorten your deployment time, okay? And you also minimize all your human error because all your configuration has gone through the sandbox and it's very fast working before you come down to production. Okay? Okay. So automation is a journey. Currently, we have about 65% of the network activities are done manually, okay? And only 8% of the enterprise globally automate half of the network tasks, right? And then 25% of the enterprise is actually looking into doing some form of automation within the next 3 years, all right? So this is the trend that we're coming, right? It may sound tough when we talk about automation as a word by itself. But for network environment, you can actually do your automation one step at a time. Okay, start from something simple and then go into more deeper into testing, and then you can do validation at the end. All right, so I will have a full-fledged of presentation and demo tomorrow on the 8th floor in Sungavik 3 and 4, which is actually a meeting room set up by the organizers. Okay, at 9:30, I will go through the details of the thing, and I'll show you some script that we have actually developed. All right, and these are some of the resources that you can refer to if you are really looking and try to understand what NetOps automation is. Right, with this, I'll end my presentation this morning. Okay, I hope to see you guys tomorrow. If there's any questions, feel free. We are just outside. All right, then you can just come over and then we can actually have a talk. Right, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vincent Boon, for your nice presentation. As an engineer, I also get a lot of knowledge from him. So now the next session is the second privilege presentation by Mr. Pierre Patris, CEO of ETIX Everywhere. He will talk about what are the new data center trends in Thailand for 2023. Please welcome Mr. Pierre Patris on the stage.
Hello, everybody. I'm happy to be here on stage. Thank you to BPF2023 organization for this forum, which is for us the second time we attended. So we are very glad to be sponsored again this year, and to take the opportunity of speaking about data center trends in Thailand for 2023. Although ETIX Everywhere, we are a data center company. We own 10 data centers, and we are present in Europe and Southeast Asia. Dr. Gautam on the stage told me, are you everywhere? So I told him that it's a work in progress, but at least in Southeast Asia, we are present in Bangkok, and we are working to open a data center in Ho Chi Minh City, in Vietnam, and in Manila, in the Philippines. All right, so let's kickstart this presentation. Is it working that way? Oh, sorry. Okay, so this is our data center in Bangkok. So it's a data center located in Bang Na Expressway, kilometer 19. So, and it's 10,000 square meter of fenced land, and we can provide 4 megawatt of IT capacity with something around 1,000 racks. We are a carrier neutral data center, which means that, and that's the reason why we're here today, is also to discuss with all of the carriers, typically to discuss about partnerships and how we can make business together a bit more fruitful. Coming back on the trends regarding the data center in Thailand. So these are the headlines, and I'm not doing some ad for Bangkok Post, but Bangkok Post has made an awesome job raising all the news from the cloud providers hitting the Thai market. Basically, we have a lot of announcements throughout last year from different CSPs saying that they will come big time in Thailand. So of course, I mean, if we talk about trends, data center trends in Thailand, you have to take into consideration your customer demands, and obviously, cloud provider are big users of data center capacity. While we were in Thailand before, more on a corporate world, where basically the colocation needs came from mainly corporates, banks, industries, and potential public sector. Nowadays, it's slightly changed toward cloud. That is, of course, the major component of the colocation demands in Bangkok at the moment. So typically, what is the incidence of this large requirement coming from the big cloud provider? We wanted to outline 3 major trends within the data center industry, which are the increase of the capacity, obviously, the reduction target on the CO2 emitted by these data center, and the network densification that will be a result of this increase of data center capacity. More capacity, it comes from two ways, basically: increase of the number of data centers. And I see from this room that we have a lot of partners and involved into this world. So a lot of data centers present here. And I'm glad they are here, because it means that if they are at the beginning Spearing Forum, it means that they care about connectivity and the connectivity interconnection between all the data center. So more data centers, and of course, bigger capacity amongst these data center, which means that before we had smaller data center with maybe 500 racks, 1,000 racks. Now we are heading to much bigger sites. We can call them hyperscale sites. And that's basically the big announcements that we have seen over the past months now, that some more data center are hitting the market. We see also a cluster strategy heading toward the data center, which means that we foresee a split, a bit something similar to what happened to Jakarta, actually. So a split between the data center load from the center and from the east of Bangkok. And this is a strong, let's say, trend, because it is directly related to how the cloud providers are actually operating. They don't want to be located in the same location. They want to be operated on different places, and they want these places to be interconnected. And last but not least, on this increase of capacity, the high density compliance. Nowadays, the cloud providers are asking for racks very, very heavy, with a lot of equipments requiring a lot of IT capacity. And the data centers has to evolve from the old way of building data center that could be located within an office place. Now it has to be a purpose built with a very, very high flow loading, supporting very heavy racks. So moving toward the CO2 reduction. So you are all aware that these cloud providers now have some very strong target to reduce their carbon footprint. So they are, of course, relying on their data center partner to make sure that the CO2 that we generate are going lower and lower. So these are also a very strong trend within the data center industry. We'll see access to green power for some of them, which means either by generating their own power on site or by relying on some what we call international power purchase agreements and green power purchase agreements, allowing us to use solar panel remotely. And just in order to reduce the CO2 emitted by the electricity used inside the data center. And last but not least, of course, in terms of design, you've heard of some news, for instance, in Europe, where a lot of cloud provider data center were using lots of water while we were in a shortage of water, actually. So now we have to, as a data center, we have to move toward a data center that use absolutely no water in the cooling in order to reduce, again, our environmental footprint. And the last point is the network densification. So network densification will be done through more bandwidth, of course. So it means more capacity toward the existing fiber path and fiber networks, but it means also diversified routes. So it means that we can no longer rely on just one and a redundant, another redundant line. We have to have multiple lines, fiber lines connected from one side to another. And key. And that's why also during this Spearing Forum, we'll be very keen to have some discussion with a lot of telcos, a lot of network interconnection service providers that can allow our clients to have access to much more capacity and much more diverse operators. So are all welcome to attend it. And we'll be able to present you typically what ETIX Bangkok 1 is doing amongst the 3 pillars that are more capacity, greener capacity, and of course, interconnected capacity. You've heard from the BPF2023 announcement, first presentation, that BPF2023 has chosen ETIX as their new point of presence in Thailand. That's one example of the typical type of partnership that we are working on to bring more connectivity and more interconnectivity inside our site. Thank you very much and look forward to speaking with you guys.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pierre, Patris, for your informative